Hi guys, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Shelby Monet. How you doing, sis? If you are returning, hey boo, how you been? It's been a while. In today's video, I want to talk about some Black authors and some books that kind of shaped my reading, and then just some people that I feel like you guys should read in general, because Black literature is literature, which should be the title of this video. I wanted to do like this whole thing for Black History Month and I dropped the ball, so I figured I'd give you guys this video anyway. So if you like to hear it, here it go. So I've been an avid reader all of my life. There was a chunk of time there when I was in college when I was not doing any reading for myself, and if you guys have been following me for a little while, you know that last year I sat myself down and was like, I am going to read more. It is the thing that I love the most in the world besides music, so I'm gonna read more. And as I've started my book club and have become a part of BookTube and become a bookstagrammer, there were just like a few authors that I felt like why isn't anybody talking about them? Like, why hasn't anybody said anything about these authors that I feel, whether I've read them or not, have shaped literature for the Black community? I think another thing, a part of the reason why I started my book club was around the time I started my book club, George Floyd had passed away, was murdered, and there was this like uproar, and everybody wanted to read a book about anti-racism, and I just was like, Black literature is literature. Like, it has been literature. It's been around forever, and I just was shocked at how everybody was looking for a book, but nobody actually wanted to change, and they only wanted to read things about like anti-racism, but they didn't want to read things by other Black authors. Like, we write fiction, we write sci-fi, we write YA, we write historical fiction. Like, we write other stories outside of just our traumas. We write memoirs. Like, we do like all of these things where we tell our story. So I just wanted to go through a few, not all of them. Some of these books I have read, some of these authors I have not read, but my mother raves and rants about them, so I wanted to mention them too, because I know what they mean to women like my mother that also is an avid reader. So yeah, so we're gonna start with a couple of authors that you guys have heard me mention, and I will put names and pictures on the screen for you guys. So first we're gonna talk about Walter Mosley. My mother is in love with him, and you guys know that I love him as well. I'm currently making my way slowly but surely through the Easy Rawlins series by him, but he does have standalone books. Now, what I mean by standalone books is he has things outside of the Easy Rawlins series that are just as good as the Easy Rawlins series as well. One that comes to mind is The Man in the Basement. I absolutely loved that book. It was different. You know what? I feel like I'm due to read that again sometime soon, because it's been a while since I've read it. Excuse me, but he is phenomenal. Next on the list, we are going to talk about Elon Harris. So Elon Harris, I have a book here off of my mother's bookshelf that's a little dusty. I need to go dust my mama books for her. Elon Harris. This is a love of my own. As a young teenager, I read through all of his books, from his memoir to all of them. And I probably should take some time and like reread some of them because it's been so long. But he is definitely an author that piqued my interest in reading, like the types of stories he wrote. His memoir was so interesting to me, and a lot of the stories were like, you know, love stories. You know, such and such was in love with this one and he turned out to be gay or messing with somebody else and all of that kind of stuff. And it was just so interesting to me to see Black couples portrayed in a different light. So along the same lines as Elon Harris is Eric Jerome Dickey. I don't remember if I've read any of his books before. I probably have because they're on Mom's bookshelf. And that was my library as a kid. Outside of like the school library, her bookshelf was where I went for everything. He passed away recently, I believe in January. And it's just like I said earlier, like there are so many authors that are like a staple in the Black community that I'm just like, y'all not gonna recommend Eric Jerome Dickey or Elon Harris to anybody? Like, what is wrong with y'all? Another one that's on my mom's bookshelf that I know I've never read any of her books, California Cooper, but my mom, like every time I'm like, hey mommy, what should I read? She says J. California Cooper, and I'm like, okay, and then I just never get to it. My mom loves her. I know this is another author that is like staple in the Black community. I feel like anybody that's my mom's age or like was reading books in like 80s, 90s knows about her. And this is someone else that like, you should pick it up. So the next two books I'm going to mention are sad. So we're just going to get them out of the way. So the first one is Push. I feel like this is a book that everyone should read because it is about a subject matter that is hard. It's hard to talk about, but it's something that happens not only in Black communities, but in a lot of different communities. And it's a movie as well called Precious. But this book, like the writing style of this book, the story is hard to read. I don't know how else to put that. It's hard to read, but the fact that she writes the story the way that the main character like speaks, and like the book grows with the main character was like amazing to me. I remember the first time that I picked this up, my mom was like, you're not ready for that yet. And I was like, okay. And then as I got a little bit older, she let me read it. And I really think like everybody should read this. It's not a long book, but it is heavy. And everyone should totally read this. The next one, I'm going to put a picture of it on the screen somewhere, is A Piece of Cake by Cupcake Brown. That woman lived a life. And I remember reading that and being like shocked because I had never, it's funny, when you grow up, like we didn't live in the projects, but my grandmother did. So like I grew up in the hood because I was there every day, after school, before mom picked me up from work and stuff like that. After work, before mom picked me up after work and stuff like that. And it's like I didn't realize some of the trauma that may have been happening around me. And reading that book was my first time having a moment where I was like, oh, everybody is not as fortunate as I am. And it's like, I feel like a lot of times people fuss at their children like, you're so spoiled and you have all of these toys and you have all of this and you have all of that. But you have to find a way to teach them that everybody is not the same without telling them. It's like, you could talk until you blue in the face. Sometimes people need an experience. And reading that book and seeing the type of life that she lived, the horrible things that she went through, but still was able to come out on top, was like, it was like, I was like shocked and appalled. Like I was like, mommy, Oh my gosh. I was just like taken aback. What? Oh my gosh. Okay, so we got the sad books out of the way. Another author that I feel like I don't understand why he's not spoken about more is Victor Lavalle. I've read Big Machine and I can't remember the name of his other book off the top of my head right now, but I talked about it in my favorites video. And The Changeling, that's the name of it, The Changeling. I read this and I read The Changeling last year. I don't know if I finished this one. Yes, I did. I'm thinking of something else. Okay, so I read this and I read The Changeling last year. And his writing is good. He writes a very good thriller, sci-fi type of book that's just different and cool, and from, you know, with a black character. I think representation is important in all things, and to see like black characters going through like fighting monsters and talking about magic and stuff like that is super important. So he should be more popular. That like more people should be talking about his books. I don't understand why y'all are not. I don't understand why y'all are not reading Victor Lavalle, but this, like, absolutely loved his books. Next, we're going to talk about an author that I discovered last year, but I read all of her books last year. Can y'all tell that I have an obsessive personality where once I love something, I have to have all of it? That is what happened with Jasmine Ward. Her writing is like, she is a complex, like, heavy writer, the same way that Toni Morrison is, but with the swag of like your cool older sister that just happens to have mad degrees, but she'll still like roll up with you and drink some Henny with you every once in a while. Does that description make sense to you? Like, picture your cool aunt that's like younger than your mama, but like, you know, the rich auntie that's like single, you know, and she traveled the world a lot. That auntie. That makes sense? That's what Jasmine Ward reminds me of. Her stories, I like the stories that she tells. I like that her stories very much depict a lot of her, because one of her books is her memoir, which I read first. And she just like a phenomenal writer. She tells a really, really good story. I would love to sit down and talk to her. Like, I would love to sit down and talk to her. She just seems so cool, so down to earth, so smart. Another book, I'm not going to pull it down, but I talked about this in my favorites video as well. Memorial Drive by Natasha Trethway. Oh my gosh. I'm really big on reading memoirs. I guess the last one that I read was Memorial Drive. Because I like to read about people's lives. Like, how do you know? You can't experience everything. And how do you know the things that other people have gone through unless you read about it, or unless you sit down and actually talk to people? And I don't necessarily like talking to people all the time. And people aren't really forthcoming about the things that they've gone through. So best way is to read about it. And her life, she talks a lot about grieving, which is something that we all have to do eventually. It's sad, and it's hard to think about, but eventually you're going to lose your parents. You're going to lose people that are really close to you. And I think I needed that book. I think I really, really needed that book. It's ironic because I bought it right after my best friend passed away. Which will be a year. The end of March. Wow. Anyway, but grief will dictate your life if you let it. And you have to learn how to maneuver it. And I think that book is it's just really good. It really kind of talks about how she figured out how to get through grief and how she realized that grief was kind of taking hold of her life, and the way that she did things and so on and so forth. So that's a really good one. And I'm trying to think, am I missing anything? I probably am. I probably am, but maybe I'll make this a series, and every couple of months we'll kind of go through and see if I add any more authors to this list and all that kind of stuff. So for now, that is all. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe. And if no one has told you today, I love you, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye, guys.